Welcome to Part TV. It is a great honor to be joined by the Primate of the Diocese of the Armenian Church, Bishop Daniel Findikian. Thank you, Sir President, for joining us in connecting with the community and enlightening us, giving us the spiritual dimension of the COVID virus we are in. Yesterday, you were one of two speakers at the town hall meeting of APO, and you were able to beautifully inspire us with your message and talk about the way the virus has affected the diocese. But today what I want to do is not talk about the virus itself as much as the state of the diocese of the Armenian Church. As you know very well, many diocesan delegates were getting ready for this weekend to go to Dallas, Texas for the assembly, the 118th annual assembly of the diocese. I was one of them. We got the tickets, but somehow we know what happened. We had to cancel. Many people had to cancel many things. But tell me, how does it feel for the Primate of the diocese to work with the St. Sarkis community of Dallas, Texas, in coming to a decision of canceling it? And what is the significance of the diocesan assembly?
Well, I mean, let me start with the significance of the diocesan assembly. This is our annual gathering of delegates from all of the parishes, all of our clergy to, in a sense, update ourselves on the status of the diocese. There are financial issues that need to be taken care of and approved. The primate, I believe, speaks about his vision. The diocesan assembly reports on its work. And, in a sense, a big part of it is sort of routine business that we would find in any nonprofit organization. So it's important. We have bylaws that require us to do certain kind of business with the entire assembly and delegates of all of the churches. For reasons that are clearly beyond our control, it wasn't safe to proceed with that. In fact, it wasn't possible to proceed with that given limitations on travel, and we have to abide by those regulations, and we have to look out for the welfare of our people and their health. So this is the diocesan assembly. This is, my goodness, in my memory anyway, the first time that this has been canceled for any reason. I don't know if that's ever happened before. So we are with this issue and others as well. We're not sure. We're in a sense somewhat blind in trying to move ahead. In the sense that we don't have a precedent to fall back on. The diocese has formed a committee, diocesan council, to look into this. What are those issues, according to the bylaws, those business matters that we absolutely must take care of, according to the bylaws? We are about to hear the results of a little bit of study that's been done on that, and then we'll determine what we need to do. There are some options, none of them good, regarding how we might approach dealing with whatever business is absolutely necessary. So we're in the process of doing that. How did we come to this decision? In consultation with the local committee in Dallas, and sort of mutually we saw as this situation developed that this was not going to be able to take place. And we came to a mutual decision. There were some logistical issues, hotels and so forth. And thankfully, all of that was able to be dealt with without any penalty to either the diocese or the parish.
Yesterday, just now, you just mentioned financial issues have to be taken care of at the diocesan assembly. And only last night, as you addressed the APO town hall meeting, you kind of mentioned very quickly, very lightly, that there is a deficit. The diocese has been hit financially also as a result of coronavirus. And you mentioned $900,000 deficit, close to $1 million deficit. What is being done? What are the needs of the diocese, which the average Armenian does not seem to really understand, maybe?
Well, yeah, I mean, the figure you mentioned is in big, broad strokes, of course. We did some investigation, given the situation of our diocese now, the hard financial hit, not just on the diocese, but all of our parishes.
Yeah.
Many of our people who are, work for themselves, and they're sitting at home now instead of out there earning money. So this impacts our parishes. It impacts ultimately the diocese as well. There is a diocesan operation. There's work, there are ministries that responsibilities that cannot be done by our individual families, and they're beyond the scope of the parishes. And these are then responsibilities of the larger structure, which is the diocese, beginning with a primate and the primate support staff, people within the diocesan network that are charged with overseeing the ministries of our parishes, educational ministries, youth ministries, other various ministries that we must organize, that cannot be done by individual parishes on their own. There's a budget, obviously, and so several months ago, when we saw how this pandemic was evolving, we sat down and with our diocesan council ran some of the numbers under the worst case scenario, assuming that we will not be the beneficiaries of donations as generously as we have in the past. Folks are simply, many of them are not able to help us, although, to be honest, we haven't seen that quite yet. Other kinds of things. The cathedral is closed, like all of our parishes. That's a source of generous donations by our faithful people. We have a facility that we rent out. That's a major part of our income. The Kavukjan Hall, that's been a very important source of our annual income. That's closed right now by regulations of the state and the city. So, taking all of that and other things into consideration, that's we came up with a number like that. I'm very hopeful that along with my colleagues on the diocesan council, that the actual deficit won't be anywhere near that. But we have to be responsible. We have to look at the worst case scenario, and then hope and pray that things won't be quite so serious.
One of the more important areas you work with is the youth of the Armenian Church, the future of the Armenian Church. And you have the Camp Vartan and the camp work, which I very recently heard was canceled for this year at least. What can you tell us about the camp life? How can we substitute that experience?
You can't substitute that experience. We have a wonderful staff of youth ministers at the diocese who really jumped into action when we had to cancel all kinds of other activities, not just the camps, but all kinds of other activities that they are involved in on the regional and local level. When all that was canceled, they just jumped into action and started using technology, Zoom technology and other things to create opportunities for our young people on the local level to gather, to be able to see each other, at least on the screen. And they're doing Bible studies, they're doing reflections. I led a discussion with about, 50 or 60 young people about a week or 10 days ago, where I spoke to them, they asked me questions. It was wonderful. So that's where that is. As far as the camps, we will have what we're calling a virtual camp. So during the regular camp sessions, a couple of hours a day, our camp staff, our youth directors, we'll try to get in touch with as many of these kids as we can, and the staff. I imagine I'll be a part of that as well. And, share at least some screen time, an opportunity to keep in touch with one another at a certain level. But there's no substitute for being there in the beautiful setting of St. Vartan Camp, High Camp, allowing the kids to get away. There's no substitute. But right now we have no options, and we'll do the best we can under the circumstances.
Where I live, there are big signs saying we love our frontliners. We love them very much. There are big signs in front of the houses. And we speak about frontliners, we speak about maybe nurses and doctors, but also our clergy are on the front lines of our spiritual life. And you're very proud of the way they have been handling. Yesterday, you spoke about the different things people have been doing. Could you give us an idea of how that is being handled as we are moving to a new norm, virtual? Everything is virtual these days.
Yeah. I'll say it again. I'm the primate of the diocese. I'm the bishop of the diocese. I can't take credit for everything. I've only been the bishop, the primate for 2 years. However, I feel a deep sense of pride. Some of these clergy are my brothers or classmates, but nevertheless, I'm in a different position now, and I look over the whole landscape. I'm deeply proud. Again, it is amazing to see how a great number of our clergy, just with the snap of a finger, under these unprecedented circumstances for which we had no advance warning, they were able to transfer so much of their ministry into a kind of a virtual ministry. So anybody that has Facebook, anybody that has looked at our diocese's website, armenianchurch.us, sees their sermons and Bible studies and inspirational messages. Some of these, from the church, some of these filmed in the clergy's, homes with their family, the Yeretzkin and the children there. And I'm hearing from a lot of people that this is greatly, greatly appreciated. They're doing other things as well. We have clergy that have set up, drive-by blessings, whereby they announce ahead of time, the Derdhai is going to be outside in the church driveway at these certain hours, and he sets up a table with some candles and some chung, some incense, and he stands there in his vestments and a hand cross, and the folks drive by in their cars. They roll down their windows a little bit. They don't get out of their cars. The Derdhai is social distanced. He might have a couple of deacons, often his children, standing there with him. And as the cars drive by, he gives them a blessing. He says a few encouraging words, gives them a little reason to be inspired, and they drive off. And I've heard from so many of our people how they really appreciate those kinds of efforts. And we're going to have to look into other kinds of things. Again, there is no substitute for the church body coming together under that, mystical, typically Armenian dome with the sacred art and the rituals and the badarak. There's no substitute for that. But we do what we can when we have to.
You speak about that there are many, many questions and few answers to our many, everybody's asking questions. We would like to know what the future is going to be like. There are so many questions we have, but what is the new norm in your opinion? You have studied the Bible, you have studied mankind's history, you have studied a lot of stuff. What is the new norm in your vision? How do you envision the new norm?
It's hard to say. I mean, I think there are two levels of addressing this issue. One is sort of very practical, down to earth, the way our politicians and our medical experts and everyone is trying to sort of interpret the current situation and forecast what this is going to look like. In that sense, for the time being anyway, we're going to have to, very strictly limit our time together in the church building. Hopefully that will loosen up in time. How much time, I don't know. This new norm is not going away this month. I don't think it's going away this summer. I think this is here for a while. That's going to have an influence on how the church operates. I don't have all those answers. The clergy, the church leaders, and I are working on this now. But I mean, I prefer to focus on another dimension, which is the biblical dimension. It's the Armenian church's spiritual understanding, is that, the new norm is not sometime in the future, it's today. The only reality we have is today's reality. Yesterday doesn't matter. It has some impact on our thinking today, and the future, where we think we'll be in September, from a certain perspective, really doesn't matter. We think about it, and we should, but the reality is today. And today we have the church operating the way it can. We have decisions as individuals to make about what we say, how we interact with other people, how we stand before God today, right? The way we stand before God is not just someday in the future after we're dead. It's today. That's the theology of the Armenian church, abundantly clear from every prayer of our Badarak, every Sharagan we sing, and every page of the Bible. And the Armenians have been doing this the Armenian church has been doing this for 2,000 years, really, as an organized church for 1,700 years. And our church has withstood genocide. It's withstood, invasion and capture and rape and pillage and all of that.
And resurrection.
And resurrection, of course. And we live by that hope every day. So we all are pushed into that zone of uncertainty for the future. The reality is we need to think about today. And we have control over that in a way that we don't have control over what the church looks like, what the nation looks like, what the community looks like in September or December. We have control over today to a large extent, not completely. And we do that through, again, the most basic things. How do we reach out toward one another? What is really important, given the fact that we are in pandemic and people are dying, loved ones are dying and suffering all around us. We can decide how we act. We can decide what's important as far as our own convictions are concerned, as far as our doubts and weaknesses and strengths are concerned. That is all within our grasp today. And we need to look at that seriously.
Sir Pazan, yesterday in your inspiring message, it was very, very important for me to see you reaching out to the doctors and acknowledging the support you've received from Dr. Larry Najarian, Dr. Cholin Karolanian, Dr. Kim Hekimian, and others, I'm sure. And there are other people who want to come and help you out or guide you or advise you. That is something very, very beautiful of being able to reach out. And you have that magnetic power of bringing the people together and they feel so comfortable talking to you. Tell us how you feel about the support you're getting from the community in general.
I mean, if there are, as I have said on a number of occasions, beginning with my Easter sermon from St. Vartan Cathedral, there are, in situations like pandemic, sickness, disease, death, suffering, genocide, invasion, violence, there are always for Christians glimmers of light in these times of darkness. And one of those more noticeable glimmers, for me anyway, has been how we come together as Armenians, as children of the Armenian Church, have come together in this time. It's an opportunity that's there. This Association of American Armenian Health Professionals is an organization about which I have been familiar in the past, but have never really had an opportunity to engage. And this situation has allowed me that opportunity and that privilege. These are remarkable, remarkable men and women who are, never mind what they do from 9 to 5 in emergency rooms, in surgery wards, in their clinics, in their offices, from their homes. That is enough for an hour of praise. But then, our meeting began at 9 p.m. last night, not the optimal time to sit down and present something, but they are giving of their own family time and personal time to reach out. And they have reached out to me and said, Sir Pazan, we need to talk about certain issues that are of concern to the church and your communities. And, from the other side, you have a voice, not me personally as the primate, but in addition, our clergy and our church structures. You have the opportunity to reach out to your people with a message that we feel is of primary importance. So that's been a marvelous collaboration, And I also feel like not just the doctors, but a lot of our community out there have not had the opportunity or the desire, let's be honest, to engage the Armenian Church, to take seriously their own spiritual commitments as children of the Armenian Church, which you and I and so many others are, whether we choose to embrace that or not. And here we have another opportunity to reach out to them as well. You don't need to live near an Armenian church and drive to church on Sunday in order to hear the message of the church in these days. And I've come into contact with many, many people because they heard my Easter sermon, which is, as of last week, had reached, 15, 20,000 people. I've never preached a larger number in my life and never will again, perhaps, but people that are touched by that and have never had the opportunity to hear the message of the Armenian Church, the Christian conviction of the Armenian people for all these years. Thank God for that. That's a gift. That's a glimmer of hope, and we'll work with that.
So Pazan, it's always nice and a pleasure, enlightening talking to you. Is there anything in closing to the faithful?
My message is to you, Mr. Abdo, for your ministry, I will call it, over many, many, many years on the radio, now on your television station. I see you at any significant event that I go to. We chat. You always have a kind word and a supportive word for the nation and larger than that for the church. And I appreciate that and thank you for this opportunity. Your work is God's work, and your work is truly evidently in these days of ministry. God bless you, and I thank you for that.